All right, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of our Leverage podcast. I think we're probably on episode 60, 61, somewhere in there. I'm excited today. I got to meet this fine young gentleman in Wichita, Kansas about, 5 weeks ago, something like that. Super sharp guy when it comes to the world of CFOs, just the overall concept of, I'll let him explain it. I'll butcher it if I don't. So, Jim, you're like a wealth of knowledge. I enjoyed the heck out of it. I remember the one component was you're really a systems numbers guy, and that was really cool for me because a lot of people just don't focus enough on the numbers. So, with that, I'm not going to spoil it, Jim. Jim, tell us a little bit about who you are and how you make money.
Well, thank you, Mike. Jim Reynolds, Wichita, Kansas. We run Reynolds Financial Services. Been at it about 9 years. You can tell I'm not a young guy. Kind of was dyslexic, doing it at the back end of my career. At the prompting long time of a friend. Really got started in what we're doing, which is catering to the small business community, which in Wichita is a lot bigger than people think. We've got about 60,000 businesses in the metro area. And with 150 providers doing various aspects of accounting, finance, CFO work, CPA, all that, there's a lot of business to go around. And so the market is grossly underserved. And I started doing taxes and accounting, and I was kind of like a fish out of water because my background as a small business CFO started to kick in when we started doing work to clean up people's numbers and so on and so forth, kind of moved from the accounting to the analytics, if you will, and they wanted to talk a little bit more about where they were going and what they were doing and how we could help them and driving more cash flow and stuff like that. And then really the accounting morphed into the analysis, which then morphed into the strategy. And we really found ourselves opening up a whole new market segment, which 2 years ago I really didn't even have, which is the whole fractional CFO market, which without sounding derogatory, fractional CFO is kind of used in the same vein of like how bookkeeping is. It's a misused word, and a lot of people really miss the boat on what is really meant by that. Quite simply, a chief financial officer of a company is really the strategy arm of the team, applies the numerics to it, and certainly has the financial staff to help he or she do it. But I've always contended, and I would say this to anybody listening, that do you need a CFO? Depending on the size of your business, probably at least a little bit, but you don't have to pay $200,000 for a full-time one. You can get a little snippet, and that's where the fractional market opened up. And so we get into all kinds of things like, how do I finance my business? How can we change our debt structure? If we've got debt, we want to restructure it. Do we go into this business? Do we stay out of this business? Do we buy that business? Do we sell that business? All those kinds of questions. Really, in a way, Mike, we're really business problem solvers because we try to be networked. And I really appreciate being able to come on because this whole thing is evidence of that, just a discussion like this. We just want to know people whom we can connect good people to help them move the ball forward. If it's us doing it, great. No worries there. But at the worst case scenario for us is we just want to be really good connectors to people and help them move the ball forward because everybody's got business issues. I don't care who you are, how big you are, how small you are. You have business things going on day after day after day. And a lot of times you don't know where to turn to get them. And that has just morphed to the extent that I didn't get back to that about 5 years ago. I won't say we dumped the tax business. We just let that piece go and let other people that I refer to handle that aspect that we partner with that are not part of our organization, but just good referral partners that take care of the tax work for us. And we work hand in hand so that you as a client basically have the idea of a team, somebody handling all the tax work, in conjunction with your CFO. It's really worked very, very well. It's blown away when we get that rolling with a client where they're saving good tax money and we're helping them on the business side, and then we manage their business for them. Tremendously rewarding. So there's your 50,000 foot view, if you will.
No, that's great. No, I know that's a very complicated world, and it's very often very difficult to take it down to the tactical level without it getting overly complicated because it is complicated, right, arena. So kudos to those that run that company in those positions. Where do you see like the ideal entry point, right, for a business owner coming in? And it's a loose term, right? Like, how do you see, when do you see the need and the necessity? What metrics are you looking for to determine when a CFO fractional makes sense?
Well, to be honest, one of the questions we ask is that we might see the need for the services, but there has to be financial wherewithal for them to do it. I don't want to put a hard and fast number because the market in Wichita is different than the market in Dallas or Houston or Atlanta or anywhere else. So the start level isn't always with a revenue number. But I always tell people you should be spending for all of your financial effort probably around 2% of your revenues handling all your financial function, whether it's staffing, the accounting, the tax work, what have you. So do the math, $1 million company, 2%, that's about 20 grand. So you should be investing at least that much. And as you get bigger, of course, you morph into having your own people, full-time positions, that sort of thing. The way people enter with us, Mike, probably two ways. One is I'll get a referral, let's say from a bank, or I meet someone and their books are a mess and can you help me, So we do what's called a rescue and build operation and we take it from there. And then once they kind of see what we can do, then we start getting into their analytical side of their business and it becomes apparent they really need the strategic help. And so it kind of comes from that direction. Sometimes it comes the other way, which has happened more and more lately, is that people hear about us, thank goodness. I'm blessed to say we have a really good reputation here in town. Folks know the kinds of skill sets we can bring, and they really want the advisory / fractional CFO side of it. Invariably, I'll ask the question, or one of my team will ask the question, hey, can we take a look under the hood and see what you got? And invariably, there's accounting issues or numbers issues, and we have to clean them up. So it's kind of almost hand to mouth, and it can come from either direction. Probably more so lately, it's come from people wanting the fractional CFO side of it. Mm-hmm. And again, size varies. I mean, I've got companies under $500,000 that are utilizing fractional CFO services with us. I've got other companies that are north of $1 million, $2 million. Basically, just get a meeting with them an hour a month or something like that. So it varies a lot on the complexity of their business. But here's another factor that you alluded to in your question. And I don't mean to be so long-winded with it, but I would just say that they have to want it. There has to be a desire. That's probably another question: is who's an ideal client for us? Probably the numero uno thing with us is that it really is more the attitude and do they have vision. In the first 2-3 minutes I'm talking to them, they might express frustration. They want, hey, I'm here. I want to get here. Hey, we need to fix that. They're forward looking. No offense, I really don't engage that much, even if they're good size, with people that are maintenance businesses. They can go get it done and get it done well and have it covered, and that scratches where you itch, man. So go for that. But that's not us. We want people that are saying, hey, how do we grow this thing? How do we whether it's to sell it or to make more money or whatever your goals, your long range goals are, those kinds of things. So that's kind of a way. We come both directions, and the size varies a lot. But I would say this: if you're a company that's saying you're doing 7 figures revenue wise, you need somebody helping you on the higher level financial stuff. Even if it's just periodically, like I have a number of clients where I'm meeting with them, 2 hours a month, or an hour a month. We got a number of fractional gigs anywhere up to a day a week. So it varies, and a lot of it depends on their size and their needs, and we frame that up. I don't have a cookie cutter plan, which frustrates people, but we love it because we tailor it to you.
Yeah,
your business is unique. So we're gonna scope it out. I might frustrate you with 2 or 3 scope meetings to make sure we're on the same page, but you'll be aligned. You'll know what we're going to do for the amounts that we're charging you, and vice versa. There's no surprises here. We try to eliminate all of that. So anyway.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. And I love those concepts too, where it's more like a consulting initial, right? To really kind of dig in, figure out where those needs are and what those costs are, as opposed to nothing against my attorneys, but here's a hourly retainer charge, and we'll just start pulling money out the retainer every time people blow our nose.
Yeah. About the closest I get to that, Mike, is when we do like what I call cleanup work. And we might estimate that, hey, we need 20 hours to clean up your ledger. And this is normally for your size of business, it's going to be X.
Yeah.
With the caveat saying, hey, brother, we try to hit these pretty close, but if we get under the rocks and we find out more creepy crawlies are underneath there, we reserve the right to come back to you and say, hey, we may need to sweeten the pot a little bit.
Yeah, I think great analogy is like my fix and flippers when they're building their budgets together. It's like you really don't know what that fixed cost is on the purchase of the house until you pull the drywall down and see.
That's exactly
what's
right.
behind it.
Yeah, and again, we try not to make that more than once. I mean, a lot of times, usually we're into it and we can figure it out and give them a really hardcore answer. But yeah, that's worked out. That's worked out pretty well with our folks.
Yeah, I love that.
And it took a while for us to learn that.
Sure.
Like everybody else, when you're in a service industry like we are, the age-old thing is you don't, at least it was true with me. And this is when I say a lower cost market, the cost of living up here is pretty modest. So I'll use the word cheap, but folks are really conscientious of numbers here. But I was really gun shy of that and probably made the mistake a lot of service providers make when they come out of the gate, and that's to price themselves too low. And
yeah, I was gonna say I love that concept.
There's a value there. I have to just wait for you.
Absolutely.
I'm out the door. And
yeah, I love that concept too of like, every geography is different, right? Middle America, which I don't want to generalize, right? But it tends to be more cost focused, right? Or financial focused, right? They really watch. They're stewards of their budgets. Clearly not everybody, but but generally that middle America kind of does. And then you get out into New York and California and some of those other coasts. And it's not that they're not financial aware, but it's just a different personality, right? It's a different behavior. It's a different, I don't know if skill's the right word, but just a focus area.
Yeah. I've got a buddy of mine that I'm real close to. He doesn't do exactly what I do because he's more on the tax side. He's what's called an enrolled agent with the IRS, and he's a CFO by trade, but he has much more of a tax background, and I utilize him sometimes for stuff. But I said, Paul, I can't charge near what you could charge in Boston for what you're doing. I can't do that in Wichita, or I won't have a business. Yeah. I've got to be aggressive in pricing because we do need to make $1. But by the same token, we can't price ourselves out of the market. I think there is a limit, and
sure,
we're trying to stay in tune with that. And I think we do pretty good with that. We're told that we're very fair in what we do, and they feel good value. That's the big word with me, Mike, and everybody talks about it, but value. What I say that at the end of every single meeting, if I were to have you as a client, I would ask you, I'd say, Mike, did this meeting accomplish what it needed to for you? Are we ringing the bell? Yep. Are we moving things forward? Are there some go-dos for us, some go-dos for you that we'll come back at the next round and make sure we're getting it done? So yeah, that has to happen, or bye-bye, because there's a lot of good people out there. There is. And that's a whole nother thing. We really kind of view it that there is plenty of business to go around. So let's do it right and work together, and everybody wins. So
sure. And I think that networking is huge, is what you kind of said earlier in your opener, right? Was, word of mouth is really the best business to some degree, because people are referring that already know, like, and trust you. So therefore their network is going to generally say, well, there's at least a connection point, right? As opposed to the cold generation work. So tell me a little bit about like how you have been intentional around building that network. I know that, I think it's easy for people to go on, which I do too, right? Which social media, and say, hey, I offer this service, who wants it? But that's a much colder audience, theoretically speaking. But I would rather, right, build that network like a you and I and 20 to 25, 30 other businesses, and say, hey, let's make sure we're all in this together and we all help each other win.
Yeah. It's interesting you bring that up, and I'll try not to get too long-winded, but when I started my business, ironically, that's what I really tried to do first. And I'd love to say I was that smart that I had that figured out, but I thought, if I'm going to be in a service business, I've got to have a good network of people that I know, because there are going to be questions ideally from people. So I really focused on that first. And interestingly enough, the business came with it. How I did it, this is where I don't want people to think I really am too smart, because I wasn't really that smart when I did. I kind of used the mud at the wall kind of thing. Well, I'd hear about something, I'd go do that, or I'd hear about that, I'd go do that. And I threw a lot of good money probably down the hole. But where it landed was, once I started to begin to determine who I wanted to really go target in terms of my business, I just started asking people, where do I find people? Like right now, one of my favorite questions of people is say, hey, like say, for example, I meet a guy who's an owner of an HVAC business. And I'll say, okay, Joe, where do guys like you hang out at? Do you have groups or associations or things where you hang out? And because I'd love to meet other people. And I started doing a lot more of that. So in some localities, Chamber of Commerce works really well for that. Here in Wichita, I'll be real cautious how I say it. I'd gear into the small business market. The Wichita Chamber is probably not quite as much geared to that, although there's some of it. But like small business associations, a worldwide organization called BNI, there's a lot of participation with people in those. And we've been a part of that now for a number of years. And that really got the core of our business rolling. Yeah. And then we got involved with a group called the Wichita Executives Association, getting around other business owners and just asking them, hey, what are issues you're facing, da, 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 da. And then you start learning where they got issues. And then that almost tells you where you got to go network, So if I'm at the risk of being a little long-winded in answering, I kind of view it this way with a good business, Mike. I tell a business owner, I said, think about if you go camping, and what's the first thing you do? You pitch a tent. Well, you get all the tent pegs pegged in and all that. And then you make sure while you're camping over the course of a day or a week or whatever, that you keep those tent pegs tight. Well, your tent pegs are all your other network providers, whether it's my business, it's like legal guys, marketing people, IT, commercial insurance, banking, all that, tax work, you name it. All those tent pegs got to be solid, and we got to keep continuing to not just establish them and then leave them. No, establish them and keep them rolling and keep them tight, keep the tent pegs firm in the ground, so that when you call on them, if I can carry on for just a minute, I've developed a really good association with a couple of guys that do merger and acquisition work, and on the legal side. And I've been running into that on my practice with owners because, hey, do I buy a business or da, 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 da. Well, there's a whole host of legal things that go on with that are way outside of our skill set. But say, hey, Mike, I know a couple of guys that I have a high degree of confidence in. Set up an intro, won't cost you a dime. Let's sit down and have that conversation and see if that makes sense for you. Da, 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 da. So that took time. And it took some, to be blunt, some schmoozing, hanging out where owners are at and gatherings, and some worked, some didn't. But, you stick your toe in the water enough, and I don't always hit a home run and tee it up and hit a line drive, but be up there swinging and, look for opportunities, and they're there. But I'm blessed. I'm very thankful to say our network is pretty strong. We've got a number of people. There's not many business issues that an owner brings up that we can't. I may not have that answer, but I sure know people who have that answer, and I can look like a real hero to them and raise my credibility. And
that's 1,000%. I love being able to be that connector. Like that is my jam. Like people call me all the time because they just know that I know a lot of people, and that's through intentional meeting with people, going to conferences, and not just partying the night away, but actually sitting down and talking with business owners, right? All of those things. And it comes back full circle, of course, when you help others, both sides, the client and the other business owner. It's almost like a double value because you help the client out, you help the business owner out, and they both have the right relationship, have some graciousness right for that.
Well, you really touched on something I really wholeheartedly believe in, and that is, if you sow good seed, you're gonna reap it. And if you're out there with the whole idea is, hey, and I really have felt this way, especially about the last 5 years, especially, that if we just do that enough and not be too worried about the revenue line, just be a good person and do the right things, the business will come to you. It will come to you because people know that, hey, that dude's a straight arrow, da 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 da.
Yep.
You know, the reputation is everything. Can't be any different where you're at than where I'm at. But I tell people, Wichita is in many respects, it's a neat town, but it's a big, small town. And, word travels fast. If you really do a great job, word travels fast. You really do a bad job, word travels fast.
I was thinking about that earlier. I was like, you have a
reputation is everything. And that's okay. I want it to be built on that because, that's where you can differentiate, because
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I would, like I said, that's kind of where I was like, is like, kind of, you made a couple examples, like, your network, right. Or your surrounding vendors, right. Or your partners or your network, right. Is I used to say that in real estate all the time. 2 facts on that. Number one was when I was a fairly sizable real estate team, I was like, hey, I can't force you to use my referrals, but I'm telling you, generally speaking, they're known, like, trusted. They're probably military veterans, which generally that means they're going to take really good care of you and things like that. I was like, I built good home inspector network. I built a good loan officer network. I built a good financial planner. And I'm like, I can't tell you have to use those. It's your choice. But I found that if you do use them, the process overall is smooth because you've got so many hands in the pot on a real estate transaction, from lenders to title to, home inspectors to you name it. Like it's like a sewer line breakage and you need a good reputable person to come inspect the sewer line. I'm like, just all of those things you have to have. I think that's what I learned the importance of a network was. A real estate agent really only controls one thing, which is the contracts and buy and sell the house. They control nothing else. They don't control the finances. They don't control the inspection, the repairs. Like literally they only control one thing, and everybody else has influence into that. So really aligning yourself was important to be able to get a payday at the end of the day, right? Yeah. I think the other piece that I was going to say is this, just the real estate industry as the example of just that network. Sorry, we just kind of talked about that. I dropped my thought on the second piece, but I'll circle back to it when I think about it. But Jim, what's a metric that you're really focused on? What do you pay the close attention to, whether it's for you, whether it's to another business? And I know that's a difficult question because there's a lot you want to say as numbers.
Not really. I'll try to be very succinct because my wife, I tell you, Jim can talk your leg off, and we're condensed time, so I'll try and just cut right to the chase. We kind of operate off of what I call a 3-legged stool, Mike, when it comes to financial management. I said, unless you're hitting the Bitcoin market or you got stocks rolling or whatever, you're going to make your money in a business 3 real ways. Top line growth, watching your sales. Secondly is your margin, your gross margin. And thirdly is what your fixed costs are doing. And if you manage to those 3, those are things we look at. And I'm humorous about myself, so I'm not really dyslexic, but I'll say to people, I'm dyslexic. I says, I don't look at your top line. And I really don't look at your bottom line. When I first look at you, I look at what your margins are doing, because that tells me if you're controlling your margins, that means you're controlling your direct costs to do what you're doing. And secondly, it also tells me that you're pretty good with your processes because you're not overstaffing or you're scaling as your business is growing. Yeah. And here's the crazy thing, and I could go off. If you had me for 2 hours, I could talk on this, and it's just nuts. But I run into this all the time where I'll tell somebody, I said, well, what you got on paper doesn't tell me what you just said to me. You told me that, hey, when you price an order or whatever, you typically mark it up X. Well, that's not what your books say. And so tell me what's in your cost, and half to more than that, they can't tell me what's really in their cost. Yeah. So a metric I look at is gross margin pretty heavily. And that's not the only one, but that's where I often start. And we have this neat little, to do a little promo, we have this neat little tracking card that we do that says, okay, let's look at you for X number of quarters. And one of the key line items for me is, what's your gross margin on a consistent basis doing? Is it going north or is it going south? Yeah. Or at least staying steady. Because if it's going north, that's saying, okay, he's doing a good job controlling his pricing, controlling his costs. If it's going that way, probably not so much. And then from there, it branches out. We like to look at what cash flow is doing. Mm-hmm. We've got some various metrics that we use on that. I like to look at if they've got a business that has to carry receivables by the nature of how they bill. Well, how long is it taking them to collect it on an average? If you got 30-day terms with your clients, if it's taking you 62 days to collect as an average, there could be some cash compression issues we're looking at here. So 3-4 things to start with. I've learned this, Mike, if I can share this with your folks, is this. Business owners like it if you can keep it. They're not stupid, but keep it simple for them.
Yeah.
I mean, like if I'm talking to a guy that's a drywall contractor, that dude knows everything there is to know about putting drywall on a wall and da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. But he might not know much or nothing about his financial aspect of it.
Yep.
What I'm going to try to teach him is just the basics of saying, hey, Mike, don't step over there because you'll blow your foot off. Da-da-da-da-da. That's where the advisory comes in. And we just want to keep you between the lines, and we'll keep an eye on the numbers and da-da-da-da-da. But that's really where the fun comes in, because they typically love that. And while some of my owners are more engaged than others in terms of how much they know, at the end of the day, they may not know it and don't care, but they need to care a little bit. And sometimes they care too much and they get too into the weeds with that. Say, that's not what you're paying me to manage.
Yeah.
You go do what you. I got a guy that does home entertainment stuff, and he's constantly sticking his nose in. And I said, Josh, keep your hands out of this. I said,
generate more revenue.
If you want to do it, fine. We'll get out of here. No. So you run into all that. But metrics, gross margins. We look at cost a lot. We look at. I like to look at if they've got inventory. How much are they turning it? Not everybody understands that term, but is it cash for them? How many times is that level of inventory being turned over in their cost in a year? And if they do that right, it actually will make them money without having to invest the money as much. Anyway, I'm getting
that's perfect. No, that's perfect. I mean, like I said, this financial world is so difficult to do in just a handful of minutes, for sure, because there's just so many opportunities, so many different differences. Well, I'm going to move us into the lightning round is what I like to call it. So these are intended to be very quick questions, very quick answers. So give me, without elaborating, favorite business book.
Wow. I've always liked Good to Great.
Good to Great. Love it. Yeah. What is your best purchase, let's say under $1,000?
Personal or business?
Either one. Either one. Could be your golf clubs.
Probably, I would say I've got a laptop here that I didn't pay a lot for. That's a tank.
Love it. Love it. From a phone perspective, or even a computer perspective, what is the most used app that you use, either on your phone or your software or your computer?
Oh boy. Well, I would have said, until my accounting team got strong, it would be Excel, but be honest with you, it's starting to become AI. I'm really leveraging that heavily in the last year. So yeah.
A belief that you have that most entrepreneurs disagree with.
Ooh, that they disagree with. Well, I was
going something in the numbers.
One that came to mind was one that they probably would, but okay. We have I'm taking too long on the lightning round. We have a list of rules like NCIS, like Gibbs in the NCIS. Number 7 for us is that client procrastination is not our issue, so don't make it one.
Perfect. Love it. Let's see. What if one thing you could automate immediately? What would that be? Could be anything. Don't even have to be business.
My billing is still too cumbersome. I'd like us to smooth that out. Yeah.
Love that. The last question I have is, if Jim Reynolds created his own dictionary and his own definitions, how would he define leverage?
Ooh. Pause. I'm breaking your lightning round rules, but
you're good. Take your time.
No.
I got editors.
No, I understand. From a debt standpoint, it's being overburdened with it, and that's where I think of leverage. But to me, leverage is really utilizing an asset or a resource to its maximum effect.
Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I was going to say earlier, like I love the networking and the leverage, right? Leverage can be defined a million different ways. And for me, I would rather have a network that I'm using to, healthily, in a healthy way, leverage them to help me with business. All right. Well, Jim, thanks so much for your time on this episode. For our guests, thank you again for tuning in to yet another episode. If you want to reach out to Jim, how would they connect with you? What's the best way to connect with you, whether it's to explore your services or just pick your brain? Tell me a little bit about that.
Okay. You can dial us direct. Can I leave a phone number here?
Sure, absolutely.
316-789-4444. That'll get you to the best office manager in the world, who happens to also be my wife. And then secondly, you can check out our website, Succentrix, SUCCEN as in Ned, TRIX, Wichita, all one word, small letters, SuccentrixWichita.com. That'll give you a flavor for what we do. I like to think I'm pretty good, but I've got an award-winning team that's won me awards within my franchise on the accounting side, and they're pretty good. So you can meet them, and 100+ years experience, but under the hood, we got a lot going on. So
love it, Jim. Hey, so everybody knows they can always reach out to me. I'm building these networks and these connections and creating an entire CRM of these connections because I want a network that I know, like, and trust. Jim is certainly one of those guys. So reach out to me as well. I can always connect you. Sometimes we get people a week after the episode and a year after the episode. So I absolutely keep all of these records on file. So Jim, thanks so much for your time today. I appreciate your time away from your business. We know that comes at a cost of working on your business, but we do appreciate you, man.
Thanks, buddy. Thanks for having me.